Hey everybody, Tim here, coming at you live for today's Star Trek review. Before I really get into this, I kind of had a question or some advice, I guess, for you guys. So I've been having a lot of fun doing these reviews, and it seems like some of you guys are really enjoying them as well, and I appreciate that. And so Miguel's watching. What's up, Miguel? And so I was just curious. So I have zero experience with like filming or any sort of editing or anything like that. So if any of you guys don't necessarily drop it in the comments, but go ahead and direct message me, because I'm just kind of curious about kind of upgrading these videos as I continue doing them. Potentially like getting an actual camera, because right now this is just my phone, which is why sometimes the Wi-Fi is super crappy. So like an actual camera and maybe just film editing basic techniques, like actually putting something behind me instead of just my bright ass window, or like even having something along the bottom that says the title. I'm sure this is like super obvious stuff, but for a beginner, I don't really know what I'm doing. So if any of you guys have experience with stuff like that or can recommend a program, go ahead and just send me a direct message with some advice or something. I'd really appreciate that. Now, as for the review, this is finally, we've gotten through the original series, even the animated series, the movies, the Next Generation movies. We are finally up to Deep Space Nine, which I know some of you are like super excited for because you guys are more familiar with it than I am. One of my friends, Janine, is like super ecstatic for me to get to these reviews. So I've watched Deep Space Nine one time. I've told the story before, I'll just tell it again, that growing up, I just thought it was super boring. I just didn't like it because Deep Space Nine is really dark and it's really gritty and it's very political, which you guys know I'm not really into politics. But I never really got it. So as an adult, with DVDs and stuff like that, I bought the Next Generation, and then I bought Voyager, and then I bought the original series. And just to kind of be that guy, because that's who I am, I have to have a complete collection, I went ahead and bought the Deep Space Nine DVDs. And I was like, well, I'll give them a try. I'll at least try it. So I started watching it, and like I binged it really quick. Like I just fell in love with this series. I thought it was so good. It was an excellent series. Way, way better than I ever thought it would be. That being said, let's see, that was about 9 years ago. So it's been a long time since I've watched this series, and I've only ever watched it one time. So for me to re-watch it, especially doing reviews, like this is going to be all new to me. So hopefully you guys can bear with me. I know you guys are going to be like, well, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? I could probably only name like 4 or 5 episodes off the top of my head. So, and a lot of it I'm kind of forgetting, or I have already forgotten, so I'm going to start slowly remembering as I get through it. So as long as you guys can bear with me, and I guess that makes these reviews a little bit more honest, because if you guys watch the Next Generation reviews, like something would happen in like season 1, and I'm like, oh, this will be important in season 7, because I can remember that. Or even Voyager, I can remember that. Deep Space Nine, they might drop a bombshell like in one of these early episodes, and if it's important, I'm probably not going to remember it. So if you guys want to jump in and just be like, oh yeah, I remember this, and this character comes back, especially the characters. Like, I mean, to me, like, the Cardassians are very difficult to tell apart, to be honest with you, so the characters just kind of blend together, but it is what it is. So, as for this actual episode, like, I have so much to talk about. Like, this is huge. We're starting a new series. So the series is 176 episodes long. That's not counting two-parters as one, because I'm sure most of you guys know I do two-part episodes as just one review. So it's 2 episodes less than the Next Generation, which I feel like that's a little sad. Like, they say they claim so close, and then they just missed it by a little bit. So the premiere, Emissary, came out during Season 6, Episode 12 of the Next Generation. So if you guys can kind of visually align those two together. What are you doing back here? There's my cat, Harley. And I did all of the Next Generation, and then I did the movies, and then I'm doing Deep Space Nine. When I did this binge before, I actually did it in viewing order, and it was kind of interesting to watch the episodes line up a little bit. But I figured for you guys and for me to do these reviews, it's a little bit easier to just kind of do it in chunks. So technically, we're back to Season 6 of the Next Generation. Also, this episode is called The Emissary, or I'm sorry, this episode is called Emissary. Season 2, Episode 20 of The Next Generation was called The Emissary. It's the one that introduced Worf's, like, lover. So I thought it was kind of interesting that they retwerked the the title of the Next Generation episode title, which isn't the first time. I mean, they do that with First Contact, they do that with Eye of the Beholder, they do that a lot of times, so it is what it is. My dogs are just all excited right now. I don't know what's going on. Frederick says, I have the exact same shirt. I know. Powerline's an amazing shirt. And DS9 didn't get good till the war. I don't know if people agree with that or not. I don't know. I'm a little bit further ahead than I'm doing for this review because I've pre-recorded a lot of these, to be honest with you, because it tries to keep me ahead of them. So far, it's not bad. Like, as far as Season 1 is going, like, the Next Generation Season 1 was really rough. But Deep Space Nine Season 1, because they have a better sense of what they wanted to do. So far, I would say Season 1 specifically of Deep Space Nine is better than Season 1 of the Next Generation. So I just went for a walk, and I'm, like, getting eaten or something. Okay, so let me get to my actual notes for the episode. I'll come back to that if I remember. So the opening is really interesting, I thought at least, because I always forget every time I watch this episode that it starts with that text scroll going up the screen. And I was like, oh, it always catches me off guard. I just don't expect it. And it's just kind of explaining how Picard was kidnapped for 6 days, which if you go back and watch Best of Both Worlds, I don't think they ever give a time frame in that episode. They never say how long he was Locutus. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And in that Best of Both Worlds two-parter video, I mentioned how originally that was conceived as a 3-part episode, but they didn't really have the budget, so they couldn't do it. Because originally it was going to be Encountering the Borg, the Battle of Wolf 359, and then basically recovering Picard. And they couldn't really afford the battle, so they took it out. This episode is, or at least the opening of this episode, is kind of that middle part that we never got. And we see the Battle of Wolf 359 and just all the starships just getting demolished by this Borg cube. We see Commander Sisko with his wife Jennifer and his son Jake on the Saratoga. And then, like, this episode starts really sad, where you just see Jennifer, or actually, I guess you don't really see it. You just hear, he goes to the room, and their quarters are just demolished, and Jennifer has died. So already, Sisko's kind of this sympathetic hero, which I'm going to stop there again. I think it's really interesting that Sisko is just a commander. That's something I never even knew until I watched Deep Space Nine for the first time. I always thought Star Trek was just about captains. So I never knew that Sisko was just a commander for several seasons of the show. So I thought that was interesting, that they just started him a little bit lower. So now it's 3 years later after that Battle of Wolf 359. And we get a little bit of details about Deep Space Nine. It is a space station that's orbiting Bajor, and it was part of the withdrawal of the Cardassian occupational force. So that was what they used, basically, and then when they left with the treaty and everything, they basically just left that space station there, and now the Bajorans and the Starfleet, and we're just kind of going back into it to look. And then we get the opening sequence, which it's fun to see a new opening sequence. But I'm going to be real with you guys. I want to see if you guys got this too. So I remember being little and trying to watch this, and there's one shot in the opening scene that I should have gotten a picture of it, but I forgot, where you're kind of going under the space station, I think, and I swear to God, the lights always look like a praying mantis or some sort of insect. I don't know. I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just me reading too much into it. But it's like the red lights, and you can see like the eyes and the mouth of like this bug in the space station. I don't know. I thought it was really weird. So let me go through. Sorry. So Commander Sisko kind of does the over stuff, and he starts talking about all the different people. And right away, like right off the bat, the first line is he's like, Miles O'Brien arrived 2 days ago. And so that is to firmly establish that O'Brien is now on Deep Space Nine. And the last time we saw him, I think it was the Rascals episode where the crew gets de-aged. And then he just magically never appears. So I always thought that was kind of poorly handled. I thought the Next Generation owed him that, like him saying, hey, they've offered me a promotion and I'm going to leave to go to the space station. Before Deep Space Nine came out. I thought that would have been a better way to handle it. But it's still kind of cool to see him. And I guess when they went to Colomini to ask him about it, he had like some specific stuff he wanted. Like he wanted his suit to have pockets, and he wanted the sleeves to roll up because he's a working man. And so when you first see him, like already his sleeves are rolled up, and then he's just covered in dirt. So that's kind of cool. We start meeting just a lot of the new characters just right off the bat, like Quark, played by the amazing Armin Shimmerman, who, like, even before this, I liked him in like Beauty and the Beast. If you guys ever saw that, the live action Linda Hamilton, Ron Perlman show, he's a regular in that show. But he was in, let's see, I think he played 2 or 3 Ferengis in The Next Generation. He was one of the very first Ferengis. So it's kind of cool that he gets his own regular appearance on a TV show. We meet his nephew, Nog. He's not named yet. I mean, I already know who he is because I at least remember that character. And he's already getting into trouble. And what I like about this is Picard makes an appearance. The Patrick Stewart is that, like, character passing the baton. Whereas if we go back to the original, or if we go to The Next Generation, it was Bones. They never actually say it's Admiral McCoy. They just say Admiral. In Encounter at Farpoint. So I think it's cool that they got Patrick Stewart to make an appearance to kind of do that passing of the baton. And then oddly enough, when we get to Enterprise, or when we get to Voyager, it's Quark. So I thought that was kind of funny. DS9 was the only series after the original I never fully got into. I may give it another go now. Happen to know if it's Netflix available? Yes, it is. Well, he already answered. Yes, it is Netflix available. And by the way, if you do watch this, please let me know. I mean, if I actually get people to watch this, then that makes my day. You guys have no idea how happy it would make me if you're like, you know, I never watched Deep Space Nine, but I like your review, so I'm going to try to watch it with you. Dude, you'd make my whole day. Like, it'd be great. I'm trying to get fellow mod Joshua, my mod bro, to watch it as well, because he's never seen it. So it's cool that Armin Shimmerman got a regular role. We see Morn, although again he's not named yet, but I know who he is. Which I got right away that the character's name is Morn, and it's Norm spelled backwards, which is the dude from Cheers, like the main character. So I thought it was kind of cool. So it's interesting to see. So we finally see Sisko and Picard meet. And, like, I love Patrick Stewart. He's such a great actor. And he's just like, hi, how's it going with your new command? Blah, blah, blah. And Sisko just lays into him with this guilt trip where he's like, oh, we've met before. And Picard's like, really? Where? He's like, my wife died at the Battle of Wolf 359. And Picard's like, oh, I done fucked up. So I thought that was really interesting to see that encounter. And basically Sisko, like, he's put on this brave face throughout the episode, like trying to get Jake involved and stuff like that. And then he just tells Picard, like, you know what, I hate this and I might just retire and go back to Earth. So it's really interesting. There's a lot to cover in this episode. Damn, I got all these notes. So I'm trying to do just the big stuff because the overall plot of the episode with the orbs and going through and everything, to me, was small potatoes. I liked most of the character introductions. We learn a lot about Bajor spirituality. We meet Dr. Bajir, who I like. I think Dr. Bajir is kind of cool. And it's funny because, like, as a kid watching this, I thought, like, Dr. Bajir, for example, was pretty awesome. Like, he was like this old doctor guy. Like, it was kind of cool. Watching it now as an adult, I am currently older than Dr. Bajir is in this show. So I was like, damn, time flew really fast for that. We meet Lieutenant Dax, so that's a big conversation right there. And that's something we'll cover over and over again throughout the episodes. When we first met the Trill in Next Generation, it was the host. And they had like these prosthetic pieces on their head, and it was all sorts of stuff. And it was a great episode that could have touched on homosexuality. If you guys watched that host review, I mentioned how it should have been a 2-parter. But, and they knew they wanted to do a host or a Trill in Deep Space Nine, and so they got the actress to try that headpiece. But I mean, let's be honest, you got to keep the nerds horny to keep watching the show. It is what it is. And so they were like, no, she doesn't have enough sex appeal, take it off. So they took it off, and they were like, okay, so what are we going to do now? And so they went back to, again, one of my favorite episodes with Fromke Jensen, the character that plays Jean Grey in the X-Men movies, the perfect mate. And she has the dots that kind of go down her face and onto her body. And they actually offered the role of Dax to Fromka. And she said no. She turned it down because she wanted to do the film career. Which, I mean, she did James Bond. She's doing the X-Men movies. She's doing fine. So I guess she kind of made the right choice. But so they stole that design and they put it on the Trill. I guess there's all sorts of like fan novel or canon stuff to kind of explain it. I guess to me it's not super necessary. I get why they did it. I don't like it, but I get it. Kind of like the Klingons. But some people have just written books about like, oh, like the host Trill was from like this hemisphere, but the Dax Trill is from this hemisphere, or they're from like 2 different planets but in the same system and stuff like that to try to kind of explain it. People have also taken the season 1 finale of The Next Generation, where it's like the little creatures that keep inhabiting Starfleet personnel's bodies, as yet another type of Trill. So evidently the Trill are a very complex race, and who they can use as a host is a very complex subject. To me, it's not necessarily. I get it. They just wanted sex appeal. Moving on. So we find out that Jadzia Dax is the new host. I don't think they give a date in this episode. I think it's a couple episodes down, but they say it's been like a year or something. Whereas Sisko knew Curzon Dax, the former host. So it's kind of interesting because he always, when Sisko looks at Jadzia, he just calls Jadzia an old man because that's who he's perceiving is because Sisko is perceiving Curzon rather than Jadzia, which I think is interesting. I like how they're accepting that different people have known this particular person throughout several different lifetimes. So I like how they bring that in. We meet Gul Dukat. We see a runabout for the first time, which I love the runabouts. Like, so the first time I ever saw a shuttle in The Next Generation, I was like, that's bitchin'. Like, that is a great shuttle. And then when Deep Space Nine comes out, you see the runabout, and you're like, that's even better. Like, that's just it's slick and it's nice. And then a little bit of a spoiler in Voyager when we just see the Delta Flyer, like, I just swoon. Like, I like how they keep improving it over each and every series. I mean, even just going back to the original series, when we see the Galileo is the first shuttle. And here's where it starts to get more into like the meat of the episode, is they realize that there's a stable wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant, which is kind of interesting because, again, comparing it to The Next Generation, there's that one episode where there's a stable wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant, but they realize that this end is stable, the other end is basically almost like a snake and it's moving. And then when Geordi and Data and the 2 Ferengi go through, now they're in the Delta Quadrant. So, but this wormhole is a stable wormhole from point A to point B, 70,000 light years into the Gamma Quadrant. So it's basically undiscovered, like, space out there. They don't really know what's going on. Odo mentions how he was found not far from here with no memory, and now he starts thinking that his origins could be through that wormhole, which kind of is. So, and then we get the basics where Sisko goes through there. This alien life forms start talking to him about like time and how weird it is that it's linear for them and just all sorts of stuff. And then it basically spits him back out, and Sisko decides to stay. He calls Picard back in and is like, never mind, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to support this space station. I keep wanting to call it a ship. I'm going to call it a ship a lot. He wants to stay with the space station, and that's basically the premise of the show. Now, that's all my useless trivia. So, that all being said, I like this. I think it's a good pilot. I think it's really well done. I like the characters. I think the characters are interesting. Like I said, I'm not big into politics, and doing some of the reviews for The Next Generation, there were some political episodes where I was like, this episode sucked, and you guys like attacked. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not a political guy. So I'm sure that's going to happen with some of these episodes. But overall, like, So I'll be honest, like I love The Next Generation a lot. Encounter at Farpoint is not a good episode. Like it's really slow. It's interesting and it does what it has to. It sets up the characters, but Encounter at Farpoint is really slow. And this episode has its moments, but overall I think this is a better pilot because it sets up the characters quicker and it kind of gets to that, okay, so Sisko's important to Bajor spirituality, and like already we're touching on politics, we're touching on religion, we're touching on all sorts of stuff. And it's not really even like the Federation. Like, yeah, Sisko's the Federation, Brazier, and Dax, but Major Kira is not, and Odo is not, and Quark is not, which I've mentioned it lots of times before, but I guess I'll just throw it out there again. Major Kira was originally supposed to be Ro Laren, which that's why I think Rascals was the last time we saw her character as well. And then she just disappeared because they wanted to get her on this show, but she didn't want to sign a 6-year contract. So they had to create a new character, which ended up being Major Kira. And then Ro did come back for like the penultimate episode of The Next Generation. But still, I think, can you imagine if it had been Ro Laren? Like, knowing that every episode I watch, I just briefly imagine Ro Laren in that role. And then I'm like, nope, it's not her. I got to stop doing that. This is Kira. This is Major Kira. So it's interesting that this is not the Federation. This is an outpost with diplomats and ambassadors, and it's completely different, and things are not going to be that smooth as well. So I think that is all I really have. I kind of blitzed through that pretty quick, but that's because I know what today is. Today's Game of Thrones Day, so I actually didn't even expect that many people to be watching. So I just wanted to throw this out there and just kind of get the ball started. I've already done several episodes of of Deep Space Nine, so I'm probably going to start posting those up on my YouTube channel, which I wanted to bring up. I almost forgot. So my YouTube channel's slowly growing. It's getting little by little. So I really appreciate all of those who have subscribed to it and have watched the videos and commented the videos if you guys want head starts. So today it was earlier today, it's not anymore, but today my YouTube, I get like a counter. It says how many people have watched or how many views I've had total throughout all of my videos. And today I got 1701, which is the Enterprise number. So I don't know, that kind of made me laugh that I'm saying goodbye to the Enterprise as I'm going into Deep Space Nine, and I get 1701 as my view count for today. So that made me happy. I feel like that's a sign. I don't know, some Bajoran god up there is like, you're doing good. Kevin says, I liked Ro, never got into Deep Space Nine, but I'll give it another go. Is that the same person? No, that's Ezra. So Kevin and Ezra, if you guys watch Deep Space Nine, you have to let me know what you guys are thinking about, and if you guys continue watching these reviews, if you guys like it. One of my other friends, Brittany, has like basically never seen Star Trek, and we talked her into like watching the original series on Netflix. And so she's watching an episode of the original series, and then she watches an episode of, or she watches one of my reviews and just kind of goes back and forth and agrees or disagrees. So Kevin and Ezra have both said that they never really got into Deep Space Nine, but they might try it. If you guys try it, please let me know. Like I said, that's made my whole day. Otherwise, that is all I have. That was actually pretty quick, a lot quicker than I thought it was. I'm kind of sweating. And to reiterate for any of those who missed it and didn't go back to the beginning of this video, so if you guys, for those that missed the beginning part and just came in and don't want to restart the whole video, I am very new to camera and like film editing and stuff like that. And now I have like a lot more people viewing. Harley, get out. My cat's like right in my light. And so I don't really know anything about film editing, but I want to upgrade. I want to give you guys the best videos possible. So don't necessarily throw it in the comments here, send me a direct message, because I would love to read and get advice like that. I'm looking for camera options, because right now this is just my phone. So I'm thinking about doing some sort of camera, and I'm thinking about doing some sort of film editing program, something for beginners, where I could probably just buy like a sheet or a screen to put behind me rather than my window, And I could even put like the title of the show or the episode that I'm doing on the bottom. Just simple stuff like that. Maybe even start throwing clips or sound bites or something. So if you guys have any advice for film editing, please let me know about that. Ezra says, it will be hard not to see Ro in Kira now that I know, right? I agree. I know I read somewhere her character wasn't very popular, but I enjoyed Dax. Her and Garrick were some of my favorites. I also had a crush on Bashir. So Garrick is great. I've already done episode 2, which is the first episode. I have heartburn. Just breathing gives me heartburn. I always have heartburn. And I think I just get nervous for doing these videos. So I already watched episode 2, which has Garrick in it. So we'll get to that pretty soon. I like Dax. I think she takes a while to kind of warm up. But once she really starts going, and once like Worf joins the show, like I like Dax. I think she's great. Bashir never really did it for me. I don't know why. But he's a great actor. Like, he's doing all sorts of stuff. I don't watch Gotham at all, but I guess he plays Ra's al Ghul in Gotham. I actually looked it up. And then, he just did something else not too long ago. But yeah, he's a great actor. I'm disappointed. If you guys watched my video for Generations, Bashir is the nephew of I just lost his name. Oh, who's he the nephew of? One of you guys watching has to know this. Soren. It's the character Soren. Malcolm McDowell. It's Malcolm McDowell's nephew in real life. And so they wanted, if Bashir could direct an episode, Matthew McDowell was going to be in an episode of Deep Space Nine. But for whatever reason, it just never materialized. So I thought that was kind of interesting, that it's one of those what could have been type situations. And Deep Space Nine has a lot of those what ifs. Like, they wanted Q to be in several episodes. They wanted Wesley Crusher to be in several episodes. They wanted original series actors to be in episodes. Like, they had all of these plans that for whatever reason just never actually made it. Dustin, so a lot of people have told me I sound exactly like Seth Rogen. I don't hear it. I don't hear it at all. People ask me to say quotes of his all the time. I don't know. I find it weird. But, I mean, if you can hear it, I guess that's cool. So, Ezra says Bashir was in Battlestar Galactica? Because I watched that. I don't remember Bashir being in that show. I don't know how big of a role it was, but... but otherwise, that's all I got for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and stop this, and then I'm going to watch Game of Thrones. So if you guys have not, please subscribe to my YouTube. As soon as I upload this video, which these live videos take a long time to upload, I'm going to upload several of the next episodes. So if you guys want like a head start to kind of see where I'm going to go with that, that'd be awesome. And it just kind of makes me feel better. Go ahead, direct message me with any film editing advice. And go ahead and keep popping up with the comments, and I'll keep responding throughout the day. And I will see you guys next time for... I deleted it. I don't know what episode 2 is called. I'm sorry. It's, I don't remember. But I will see you guys next time for episode 2.